the flag. So if everybody can stand up, face the flag on the far wall, hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. All right, well, we got a full agenda tonight. We got an open mic. We're gonna do that, and then we're gonna have John Danning give us an update on our mine situation. We got about 20 minutes for that. During the open mic, I should say, we have the sheriff and Charlie here. So this is a great time to get a short update from them, and then we can ask them questions. And then John Danning will have a mine update, and then we have Pete and Bethany here, and they're gonna talk to us about composting and recycling in this area. And then at the tail end, we'll have a election box. So it'll be a packed night. So we'll start off with the open mic. Sheriff, did you want to say a few things?
Sure. Where do you want me to stand?
I think where you're at is perfect.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. I saw some of you last time I was up here, and thanks to definitely Charlie Harris here. He's off shift, but he's staying because he's committed to York County. If you don't know him, he's a great guy. So I'll be real quick, and then I will say I like coming out here and listening to. I think politicians do a lot of talking, but concern that you have right now, or I'll say, for the whole program, if you come up to me, no matter what it is, then I usually just give it to him. but seriously, bigger issues you want to talk about, or anything you have an issue with public safety, I may not get an answer right away, but I usually get back within a couple of days. So just let you know. So real quick, we are still working on our staffing issue at the sheriff's office. I won't belabor that too much, but we're hiring still at the local academy, 8 or 9 of them right now, and that academy is in Horch. It's a great thing. We're working on a permanent location in a few years, maybe along the I-5 corridor, where we can build and have more amenities for the police academy. But that's a great thing. So the sheriff's office, we've been hiring, but we've also have an attrition and lose through retirements as well. So we're trying to keep up with that. We're working with I'm on a subcommittee group that's talking about funding and how to get more positions. So the county council has to make some decisions this year on what they're going to do. I thought we were real close last year to getting extra bodies. It's tough because everybody's vying for budget, but public safety is #1 concern in anywhere you go. And the sheriff's office every year has been getting less and less and less in staffing. So we need to keep that up. So I'm pushing forward on it. You guys can speak up to as a community, but we're working on it, and hopefully we'll have a direction, maybe in June, July, or August of which way the county council is going to go on that. So we're working together on that. So wait and see on that. Public safety laws. A few years ago, you guys remember when there were some laws in Washington that kind of got things out of whack. We couldn't pursue, we couldn't touch anybody unless you had probable cause. On a crime. I don't know if you guys knew that. They kind of let the lid off. Right now, I look at all the bills that have been presented, and there's no major public safety ones that have been brought up. There's some that could affect us, but they're not the extreme anymore. So they kind of stopped that, which is good news, because those laws affect everybody. It affects the job we can do, our authority and whatnot. So that's kind of good news. That there may be some laws that get passed that you don't like, but I'm talking about public safety ones that really affected what we could do. So I keep an eye on that, and more to come on that. It's a long session, so it goes till April this year. Let me see. Did anybody have a question on, you guys watched the news or talked about immigration in the Northwest or heard from the feds? Does anybody have any questions on that, or do you want me to give a quick overview on that?
He was pumped right now.
Okay. I'm getting lunch. Yeah, there's a lot, but there's a lot of questions that I get media, and so it's real important. We have never, local sheriff's office, police, local agencies, municipalities, we do not enforce immigration laws. They never have, and we won't. We don't have the resources to hardly time staffing our own, and we don't. We work with federal agencies on criminal matters, or if there's a warrant or not. We work with the FBI, law, DEA, all these things. But immigration is separate. We never have worked with them. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Washington passed a law. I'll keep Washington working. I'm getting it right. And where we couldn't even share information with immigration, like if someone got booked into jail and they were not documented, if they asked, we could have shared information at that time. The law passed, so we can't even share information. That's where the stance is. It's the state law right now. Now the federal government has talked about, and they are going to address this with entities. I don't think we're going to get put. Hopefully, we don't get put in the middle of this about between federal feds and the state. But right now, we follow state law, and we also support the Constitution and people's rights. So sometimes it's a fine line, it's a balancing act that we have to do sometimes. But I don't see any major issues right now. We're not getting caught up in the middle of any of that. So I just kind of want to let you know that. So it'll probably more affect the jail, which is not under my authority anymore. If they change anything, the policies, it'll be if the jail is going to contact immigration if somebody's booked in there and they're not a U.S. citizen. So that's my guess on that. So don't take that as word, but that's kind of where that's going. But that's a hot topic right now. You're hearing a lot about it. And I did a interview with the Columbian today too. Out there. So we've had this policy. It's been that way, and then they passed a law. So we don't have anything whatsoever to do with that. Any question? Now, I'll say this. If some of the homicide suspect or they do a robbery and they're not U.S. citizens, we do those criminal investigations. Does that make sense? But the sole crime of not being a U.S. citizen, we do not investigate. All right. Anything you guys? I'll stick around. Any concerns you have? The roundabout, I heard about it at the battleground game. You guys have any concern about the roundabout? No, good. I hit a nerve.
So I think the roundabout's doing pretty good down there. Overall, there was a couple whiners, but anyway. So I've been watching the spot crime up here, and we have a higher per capita assault rate than anywhere else in Clark County. And I attribute that to homeowners having to come out and play policemen with their errant neighbors, their young kids growing up, learning, and the little old person comes out and says, "Stay off my lawn," and then it goes up to an assault. So we have a higher per capita assault rate per neighborhood than anywhere else in the county. And so I was just hoping that the sheriff department would remind those people to put up signs, use signs, hopefully instead of your fist, around Clark County, we're speculating here. Because you got to wait 55 minutes for a police response. And it's getting pretty tough. They know. And so they're really antagonizing the old people if they say, "Stay off my lawn."
Can I ask you again where you got that information at?
Spot crime, and spot crime is one that works right directly with the reporting straight out. And when you do a grid search in certain areas, you will see the Amboy all the way up to the Apple.
I'm not familiar with spot crime. I'm not seeing that in my call load. Now, granted, I work 4 days a week. I work 47 hours out of the week during the daytime.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing that myself. I'm not doubting that. I'm just wondering where that data is coming from.
Yeah.
And when you say it's been reported, my question would be reported where? To 911, or is it being reported to something else? That would be an interesting question.
So maybe I'm reporting it because I'm seeing it, I'm concentrating on it. But per capita, when I see a lost person, a stolen car, a fraud report, a 911 report, all get logged on a daily log on spotcrime.com. And they send you a handy little thing, what's happening right next to your address, okay? But on any one of those, I live right here in Amboy, And any one of those, all of the listings that are on there, assault, theft, assault, problem with the neighbor, assault. So per week, there's more assaults. And what I'm just trying to tell people straight out, instead of using your fists or getting out there, you know, if you're an older person and go through a stress, older people can have heart attacks when they get under stress with these young kids. And put up signs on your fence, you know, and call the police on, you know, these guys are with their four-wheel drives or, you know, little four by fours. My neighbors up here, not a big one of them got licensed. They haven't even been licensed. Their cars haven't even been licensed for 3 years, you know. And it's just infuriating, you know. And it's tough to watch that. And I hear people say, you know, as soon as I can get out of this town, I'm getting out, you know. And I want to change that straight up. And I want to change the environment of this, you know, lawless young kids that are out there. That's impossible to have.
So young kids, the lawlessness of young kids. I wish that, real quick, I would say anybody, in my opinion, the world has changed as far as drugs and violence and what people will do over the littlest things. You shouldn't be confronting people. You should just call 911. I tell people that in town.
Right.
I see thefts at a store. I just notify security. I don't go deal with them because people will do things. So I would agree that if somebody runs into something, it's best to call, 40, 50 years ago, you might be able to go up to somebody. It's just a different world. Okay. So I agree with that. I'm not quite sure. I'll just say this. I don't want to push back too much, but having that many assaults, it would come up. I think you would hear about it, but I'm going to check on this because we do have the data. And what somebody reports as assault, it might have been reported that way, but it's not an actual assault. So I have to look at what you're talking about there because we have our own ways of pulling the numbers up there and on our through our CAD system and through our EIS dispatch system. We kind of look to see if there's a certain reason something's going on. So, but I'll look into that.
I think the assault rate went up because they went to even if you do this or touch.
Well,
So
that might get labeled as an assault, but that by law, that's not an assault. So when I show up, I'm not arresting you for assaulting her. We're having a conversation about harassment. Is she wanting to be a victim? She's got no injuries. So there's a lot more to it. And somebody may call in and say, I was assaulted. People say that all the time.
I know.
And they're not, you know, people call in and say I was threatened. Well, there's a legal definition of threat. And then someone says, I've had about enough of your crap. That's not a threat legally, but you may perceive it that way. So there's a lot of different, it's all about perception and stuff like that too. So
How it's reported. Police reports are the most accurate. When we get to those, then we can see what's actually reported in.
Well, I'm sure you guys get the blow by blow. All I get is a final wrap from 911 that says assault, fraud, child missing, problem with the neighbor or something like that. But it's, just 3/4 of the stuff around, right close to the church here is all assault. Anyway, and that's just what I'm trying to do is, make sure that when you guys go out there, just tell the people to put up signs. Hopefully the signs will help remind the people to keep their, demeanor right. And, if not, you're going to call them up. So anyway, and there's hardly any signs up there. To remind these kids to quit trespassing or don't come around here.
there's a lot of disrespect for other people's property today. So,
I mean, yeah.
Apparently you have a comment or.
I'm not sure. I don't recall what the explanation was from Brian, because Brian's our stats guy. That has been to some of our neighborhood meetings with actual crime data maps.
Yeah.
And somebody else had brought up this crime spot map, and he had an explanation, something of what along the lines of what you were saying about how the crime spot map is just what people are calling in. It's not what the actual crime is.
Right.
I'll call Brian because he'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because we had the same conversation at another neighborhood meeting. And there's another map to look at that actually shows what the crime was. And maybe we could get you redirected to that other map.
No,
Thank you.
anything else, for us? I'm gonna stick around.
I've been up since 6 a.m., so I'm gonna leave, but I'll wait about 5 minutes. I know you guys have an agenda. I don't want to hold you up, but I'll wait about 5 minutes. If anybody has a specific question, we can step outside and have a conversation if you would like to. But if no one comes out, and I'll stay as long as people want to talk to me.
Yeah.
But if no one wants to talk and you want to move on, I'm totally good with that too.
He has to get up early tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I gotta be back up this, about work at 6, so.
Stay safe out there, Charlie.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's gonna, I'm just talking about him salty one day.
Yeah, you heard me say that. I'm like, it's gonna a little bit like.
I'll let you throw the first blow.
All right, keep moving us along. I see we got Sue on the call, and I was writing back and forth to Sue. And we're trying to get a dirt class organized in this area, and we're having some difficulty. We have the interest. It seems like we got a full schedule on the part of Cressa, so I don't know if our councilwoman can do anything to loosen some knobs for us to get that to happen or not. But anyway, I think there's a lot of interest in a CERT class in this area. And I think there's a lot of reason to have it. I mean, we're a rural community. I think, I think just with what we've seen in North Carolina and how rural communities get hit a little bit harder, I think there's a strong case to be made that it's good to have a class here.
Yeah, if I could chime in, I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but if there's a way I can pull whatever strings I can to help get you your CERT class, I think it's very exciting that there's so many people that would want to go through that training, and I do think it'd be a great asset for your community. So I'll work with you on that, and the county contracts with Cressa for 911 services, but we don't govern them, but if I can help, I'm happy to do that.
Appreciate that. I really appreciate that.
I do have some information.
Do you? What do you got?
Okay. I probably should stand where somebody on the camera can see me. Can you see me?
Really back there you go.
All right, there we go. Okay, so I spoke with Jody, and she said if she moves some things around, she can schedule a class in November. She does not have a date.
Okay.
It would be in November, but it would be a 3 full day training. It would not be, she would round the 24 hours into 8 hour, 3 full days. So you would still get the 24 hours of training, but it would be 8 hour, 3 full days. So there'd be, it'd be a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday, available to age 18 and up, age 17 with an adult. And the cost would be $35 a person, and it pays for the background check and the supplies provided. At least 25 people would need to be signed up and pay for the class by the deadline, which is still to be determined. And then the supplies provided would be limited to supply on hand. we've just heard about this freeze on federal grants, and all the money for this comes from federal grants. So that's gonna be dependent on what happens with that. And then, whoever decides to sign up for this, you have to attend all of the classes, so all 3 classes to be able to get your certification. And makeup classes are not available, and that applies for the other classes as well. The topics, I went ahead and highlighted them. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because I know Pete's got a lot of information to present to you, but there's 7, normally there's 7 classes. And they focus on emergency preparedness, disaster communications, disaster psychology and terrorism, fire safety, medical operations, and then there's a final actual drill that you go through. Part of it is checking on the safety and well-being of your neighbors. She has also given a willingness to do a 1-day training that is earlier, that would be in either May or June, and it would be like a cert light training that would be more oriented. It's the same focus of things, but it would be more central to preparing your family and your neighborhood. It would focus on reality of emergencies, identifying the hazards in your neighborhood and where you live, creating your family emergency plan. What does preparedness mean? Utilities and fire safety, mindset of a disaster, emergency first aid, and is your neighborhood ready for disaster? That would only be $5 a person. There'd be space for 40 participants, and it would be a whole day on a Saturday. And what I did, I printed out a bunch of these. I think I did 15 or 20 of them. And what I did was I highlighted the cert classes and the light cert light so that you could compare what was available in the 2. And then I also printed up, I shortened to a 2-page of what is actually already available. If somebody wants to sign up for the 7-class full meal deal thing that is going on in April, in Battleground, I went ahead and put out all the information that's on that. The classes are April 9th through May 10th. I put all the dates on here. You can't sign up prior to March 11th, so that's coming up. This has all the dates, all the times, all the locations. There's one in Battleground and one in Vancouver, and they're consecutive. And I've got, I think, 30 of those sheets that are in here so that people can take these with them if they're interested in that information too. And that way, both things are available to you within the time frame of what she can do, of what she's being allowed to do.
Okay.
So, and if you have any questions, ask me afterwards or call me directly, and I'll see what else I can do to make things happen for you.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks.
All right, John. What? You're up. You next.
Step forward here, Merrily, so I can, because we're gonna put the presentation up, and that way everybody can kind of see the presentation. I'll be up here, so I don't know if the camera needs to turn to see me or what, but we'll go on display mode, and I guess I'll just go next screen.
Okay, can the people online see the slideshow?
Yes,
I guess so. Okay.
yes, we
Okay,
can.
Very good. All right, next slide. Start off. So I'm gonna do it real quick. I've got about 20 minutes. He's got his watch out, he's timing me, so I'm gonna be talking really, really fast. If you got questions after the thing, I can answer questions. But real quickly, I'm gonna recap, Chelatchie Bluff Mine, Railroad, where we're at, what's going on. I'm gonna start from the beginning, come all the way through, so I got a lot of slides. I'm gonna talk about why this matters to it. And then a call to action at the end, what we're currently doing and how we can get help if you're interested in helping us. Just to be clear, I'm not a tree hugger. Okay, I don't have anything against gravel companies. I don't have anything against Forestry Service. I just think things need to be done legally. Okay, so this slide is presented to a lot of different people. I think we know this next slide. All right, back in 2021, you'll see that up here at the top, let's see here, is this thing on? That's interesting. Okay, there we go. 2021. So in 2021, Granite Corporations and BRP put in a application to change 330 acres up in Chelatchie Bluff to surface mine overlay. They presented a very detailed plan with that. So it wasn't arbitrary or fictitious. It was a real live deal. They provided drawings as far as what the mine needed to look like. They provided details on how much material they were planning to dig out. They provided details on how deep the hole was going to go. They provided details. And for the GMA, you are supposed to present an EIS, environmental impact study, at the earliest known time of your plan, right? So obviously they know what they were planning on doing. So they submitted the plan in 2022. Clark County went ahead and approved it as a designation of non-significance. What that designation meant was that you didn't need an EIS. And they also went ahead and approved the surface mine overlay based on that decision. Friends of Clark County took opposition to that, and they filed a complaint with the Growth Management Review Board. This is their document over here. You'll notice I'm not making any of this stuff up. I'm presenting the evidence. I'm not talking out of my wrong spots. Anyway, so they filed a complaint saying that they knew enough detail to have an environmental impact study. They didn't do an environmental impact study. And so that was their main complaint. Next slide. The Growth Management Review Board took a look at that, and they ruled in FOCC's favor. They did believe that there was enough evidence and information provided at the application level to trigger an NEIS. The county went ahead and did decide to reverse their DNS. They turned it back over to a significant impact, but they also refused to change the ordinance. And that's why you hear about the $6.4 million of lost revenue to the county for loans and grants, is because they're currently in violation of the law. Next slide. So continuing in 2023, as soon as they decided to go ahead and do this, they joined forces with deep-pocketed Granite Corporation and BRP and filed a appeal to the district court. And again, here's the document right there being shown and showing the people on the document, so I'm not making this up. And they did go ahead and I already mentioned that they reversed the DNS piece, but because they reversed the DNS piece, Granite Construction and BRP went ahead and filed a complaint against that reversal. That's pending the larger issue, which is the appeal. Meanwhile, the excitement in 2023 really got Vancouver Junction Railroad all keyed up and ready to rock and roll. And so they went out and decided to start carving roads and going across wetlands and all kinds of wonderful stuff, and allegedly destroying the wetlands waters and forests in preparation for a big, huge loading dock out there that they wanted to build. With a 1,000-foot long drop metal gravel chute, which is going to be really quiet, I'm sure, to the neighbors. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, NOAA Fisheries, Washington Department of Ecology all got involved, went out there, did site visits, did find enough issues to where they issued a cease and desist, and that is continuing to migrate through those issues as we speak to this day. Next slide. Meanwhile, in 2024, we started the comprehensive growth management plan, and in the growth management plan, because BRP, the ones that own the mineral rights for Chelatchie Bluff, don't feel that 330 additional acres of their land is good enough, has filed 84% or 80% of the requests for Chelatchie Bluff is all BRP mineral lands, turning almost 1,400 acres of land into gravel pits in Chelatchie Prairie. Next slide. So meanwhile, the Court of Appeals was percolating, all the arguments were made. They finally had oral arguments on January 9th. FOC's lawyer, David McDonald, was up there in Seattle. Clark County Granite lawyer team was up there. Christine Cook from Clark County, representing Clark County, and James Housley was representing Granite. Everybody presented their arguments. Personally, I think the FOCC lawyer did a much better job. I think the other two lawyers seemed a little tired and put out for having to be up there. But as anything, rulings like this take a long time. They come out anytime. We're expecting a few months before we actually hear what the ruling is. If the ruling comes out in favor of the FOCC, then the ordinance has to be rolled back and the SMO is removed and the forest gets put back on, and they have to go through their EIS and all that kind of stuff, depending on what the new council decides to do. If they rule in Granite's favor, then the SMO moves forward and we go from there. Next slide. So why does this matter? Well, it matters because the water, that's one thing, and then the water, that's another thing, and probably the water. Next slide. So just going over stuff again that I didn't make this stuff up. There's 2,000 stormwater needs. You can see Clark County has clearly marked the Chelatchie Prairie as protected area. Next slide. Stormwater. This is a layout. This is also showing what synergy, as soon as this area over the original 375 acre thing started happening, synergy jumped right on board and wanted to offer up their property as well. Very good possibility that those two will merge together. You can see how this entire area is right at the headwaters of Chelatchie and Cedar Creek through both Booty Creek. Next slide. Also, all these, this is again, you can see I'm pulling this directly off of government websites. This shows you all your coho, stillhead, salmon areas, protected streams, and you can clearly see that Chelatchie and Cedar Creek are coho and stillhead and so on, fish protected areas. And the fun thing is this year we had a Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife biologist actually in the stream in my backyard, pick up a nice big huge male coho. So we've got confirmed salmon run up in through this area. So this is absolutely not fictitious. In addition, critical aquifer, the pink area that you see there, that's all underlying how water transfers from above ground to below ground and into your wells. So if it's pink and you're in that pink area, congratulations. Whatever they do on Chelatchie Bluff will get down into your well or could get down into your well. Next slide. This is a geological study that shows that what they call alluvial layer, and that's what they're drilling over, which is understandable. Good concrete, good round rock. I totally understand why they want it, but unfortunately, it is also the nice alluvial layer that's providing us our drinking water. Next slide. Next slide. We don't need to beat it to death, but here's Cedar Creek and Chelatchie Creek, both marked as high in ranking for criticality of watershed characteristics. Next slide. The other thing is anybody that's been out in Chelatchie Prairie knows that those mountains are steep over there, and that's volcanic and very unstable ground all along that area right there. This brown shows that information. Next slide. Oso landslide ring a bell to anybody? It's what we're talking about. And people tend to forget the history and things that have happened in the past. And yeah, okay, that might be a good rock in there. I don't think it is because they didn't scientifically test it. But let's just say that they've got really good rock there. Just because it's a good rock doesn't mean that that's the best place to do it for us, for the people, for the children, we got to put in all the pieces to the equation. Next slide. So regardless of which way the appeal goes, we got to do an EIS. If the appeal goes in their favor and the SMO is there, they got to do an EIS. If the appeal goes in the FOCC's favor, they got to do an EIS. The difference is that if they do it on before the SMO, then the county and us citizens have more voice. If they have to do if they get to do the EIS after the SMO is put in place, it's bureaucrats sitting behind desks down in Clark County that get to make the mitigation conversation. You figure out why it's such a big deal for the corporations to put it on that side. It's not, doesn't take brain science. Okay. So they got to do the EIS. So we need to posture ourselves to be ready, regardless of where that EIS is done, to do the EIS. Next slide. Trying to keep it going. How am I doing? So what we need to do is we need to leverage scientific institutions. We need to leverage scientific technologies and techniques of today. And we need to get certified reports that are current. Next slide. So Chelatchie Prairie Coalition, which I'm the president of, we went out and hired a university connected company, and they also have connected with another company to consider these factors. And I gave them a litany of stuff. We gave them a litany of stuff, and we told them we don't want bias. We want them to tell us the truth. And if it hurts, it hurts. We want truth. Brazil. And out of about 6 theories that I put out there, that we put out there, hypothesis, 3 of the hypotheses came back as favorable things that we need to look at as far as things that could be a problem out there. And so, first of all, it says that they're not doing it biased, because otherwise they'd try to prove every single one of my hypotheses instead of coming back and saying, well, this one's good, this one's not good. And the second thing is they did give us credibility to 3 of the ones that we really think are the big points. And so that's all good. So we got that study back from them. Next slide. Now we need to go into phase 2. Phase 2 is a study where we're going to take that high level information that's been gathered. We have over 90 geological scientific documents dating over 6 decades, right? So some of the documents are literally 60 years old. And so we need to gather all that stuff, and we need to refresh it. We need to put it through new technology and weigh it against new information and build the report. Next slide. The aim of the report is to protect and preserve our resources. We need to have current scientific facts that aren't biased. We need to ensure that proper mitigation is in place if a mine moves forward. I'm not saying we're going to stop the mine. What I'm saying is if it does move forward, we need to make sure that they protect our water. And but we do believe that we can leverage the science in our favor as far as this whole thing and make it work right. Next slide. So we've teamed up with Friends of Central Vancouver. They're a 501c3. The Chelatchie Prairie Coalition is not a 501c3 federal. We're 501c3 Washington State. We're not federal. So Friends of Central Vancouver has joined up with this as our 501c. We're looking for people to help us. This study is very expensive. We've come up with probably more than half of the money that we need, but every dollar and dime that we can get donation wise would be fantastic. Next slide.
We
So
have a raised hand.
what's
So
that?
We have a raised hand online. Jim Malinowski has a question.
Oh, I just want to be in line to comment at the end. I have a different.
Oh, okay.
So what do we do if we don't act? What if we don't do this study? What if we just let things go? Well, we're going to be dealing with, we're going to be vulnerable to industrial propaganda. We're going to have anti-environmental bias. We're going to rely on outdated and fragmented studies in our work. We're going to expect minimal mitigation from the multi-billion-dollar companies. They're only going to do what they have to do. And anybody who doesn't believe that is falling asleep on reality. All right, next slide. So anyways, be urgent to get your support, and any donations and help you can give us would be great. And next slide. And if you're looking for gravel, I think there's some gravel out there. Next slide. That's it.
Jim, did you have a question or comment?
Yes, you know, my family moved down here from Aberdeen in 1950, and I still consider myself a newcomer to the area. Most of the people that I grew up with out here are loggers and work in construction. And I think the majority, certainly of all the old timers, want to see this activities like this pit, like the railroad, continue. And you know, my dad pioneered the Chelatchie pit that's operated for over 50 years with no problems, and produced a lot of rock for a lot of driveways and various construction in the north. That pit is going to close shortly. We don't have very many places where we can get rock in North County, and this rock is going to be needed. And the other thing is that you got to remember too that one of the things that happened when the environmentalists closed down the forest to logging is a lot of the families up here lost their sources of income and had to go somewhere else. This pit would provide jobs. It would provide needed materials for the county. And so I think what you're hearing is something from an environmentalist and a newcomer view that feels that the old timers don't have any rights to speak up for themselves. And I don't think what you're hearing certainly does not represent the views of most of my friends and neighbors out here in North County. And so I think this group needs to hear a more balanced viewpoint than this one. This is a very biased approach, and it tries to scare people when the fact is that pits like this provide necessary materials for the community, and the GMA actually has a provision to encourage development of rock this way. So it's not a violation of the GMA to develop rock resources. So I hope that the proponents of this activity will have a chance to speak on this subject. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, so I don't have a lot to argue with, except that he is in fact talking, saying that we're running out of gravel. I love that argument because it's myopic, but that's okay. GMA does in fact allow that. Nowhere in my statement did I say no mine. You guys heard me say that if the mine goes in, the proper mitigation is taken care of. Nobody heard me say, shut the mine down. Didn't say it. So I'm not being biased. I'm telling you the facts. The facts are you got a lot of water up there. And the facts are why, if they know they got to do the EIS, they know they got to do the EIS, why is it so important that they do it after the SMO is put in place? Why is that? If they're so conscious and such great people, then who cares? Just do the EIS and then do the mitigation. It's all I've been asking. It's all we've been asking. Do it right. But they know that if they can get the SMO done first, then they can rely on the well, the SMO's in place. That solves a lot. You can't ask me those questions because obviously those were answered when they placed the SMO zoning in place. Yeah.
What is that?
Surface mining over. So, yeah.
Comment. The railroad hasn't been mentioned, really. That's scary. Eminent domain all along that railroad.
Yeah.
That's a big factor. I mean, I'm an old timer too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I haven't lived here all my life, but my name is Witter and I grew up on across from Coldwater Road and
sure.
Am coming back like an old salmon. But that railroad is very scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't spend a lot of time on the railroad, but we could certainly do that. But that's the other thing, and I kind of smile when I hear well, I've been here forever, and all of the people that have been here forever don't like you newcomers and da 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 da. And I get it. I'm a newcomer. I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend. But when this whole thing started out, there was a guy that shares property line with me that's been here for 40, 50 years. And he joined me in the original discussion on this whole thing. And if he was still around today, I think he'd be sitting here backing me up. So I have people that have been here 6 and 7 generations. So every time I hear the person try to use that, well, we've been here forever excuse, I'm sorry, that's not what we're arguing about. What we're arguing about is, do we do it right? Or do we just do it because the rock is there and I'm drooling over it? Do we do it right? Or do we make sure that multi-billion out-of-state corporations that are going to suck most of that money out of state get what they want? Or do we do it right? All I ask. Any other questions?
I think they're going to, they'll probably end up doing it right because the washable pit is under the same scrutiny out there. And anyway, they can't get there.
And if they do it right, hey.
Yeah, they gotta do it. So. Anyway,
Right.
but the gravel is needed.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I don't think that they have any plans digging into Cedar Creek. But the Chelatchie Creek headwaters, they probably could.
Well, no, it'll get in Cedar.
But I don't think that they're gonna be using any chemicals. So it's not a fracking.
Yeah, except you still have the DOE cleanup areas that have not been dealt with.
Just a comment, I'd like to make one comment. If the county is really worried about our streams, they should enforce the riparian habitat ordinance we've got an ordinance on the line. I was on the committee that developed the repairing ordinance. The county is not enforcing that. If you really want to protect our streams, talk to the county council and ask them why they're not enforcing the riparian area ordinance.
Good point. Thanks, Joe. Good point.
I gotta move us along, so we get to everybody. Thanks, stuff, we got Bethany, we got Pete, so I don't know who wants.
Who wants to go first?
I'll tackle it.
And I'll just make a comment. What we do try to do, Jim, is we do try to make sure that both points of view and do always get presented at the neighborhood meetings, and so that everyone does get a chance to voice their opinion. So thank you for making sure that you raised your hand. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
So which one's first?
I'll go first.
Okay, so batteries.
Batteries indeed.
Okay, and slideshow. Okay. What are we doing?
Oh, it's because I have a YouTube video embedded, accounting cleanup.
They have to make it hard.
I know. Well, that was a tough act to follow, but my presentation is going to be pretty quick, and then I'm going to pass it over to Pete. I just couldn't miss the opportunity to get out here and chat with my Amboy folks. My name is Bethanie Velasco. I coordinate our battery drop-off program and our household hazardous waste education and outreach programs within the solid waste team. So tonight, I'm just going to be covering the battery problem, our disposal options, and going over the battery drop-off program. So, household batteries. What do we mean when we're talking about household batteries? I know it's hard to identify them, and nowadays we have so many, we're kind of inundated with battery type. Even I have issues identifying them sometimes. My husband will come to me like, what is this? What do I do with it? So this is just a really quick list, as well as some pictures of different batteries that you might come across in everyday items. So we're talking about alkalines, so TV remote batteries, button cells, batteries you find in your watches, carbon zinc, kind of just a different chemistry formula. Lithium ions, primaries, nickel cadmium, nickel zinc, small sealed lead acid batteries, and for the sake of this program, all cell phones. All cell phone batteries are typically lithium ions. So all spent batteries are hazardous. And on the screen here, I have some photos showing what we mean when we say they're hazardous. Batteries, as you guys might know, pose a serious risk not only to our soil and our water health, but also to our solid waste infrastructure. So batteries, when they're spent, they can still have charge in them. And lithium ions in particular, when they're punctured, they can reach a matter of 1,000 degrees in just minutes. So they get really, really hot, and the fires are really, really hard to put away. So when we're not disposing of our batteries properly, you can see here, this is one of our trucks. They set on fire. They set on fire in our trucks and at our transfer stations. But this video doesn't always work. Go ahead and give it a click and see if it's gonna work. Use your imagination. Use your imagination. This is essentially a video clip showing what happens when a screw makes a tiny puncture mark on a lithium ion. So the video is only 20 seconds long, and within 20 seconds, it lights, and these batteries can run without oxygen, and it takes an incredible amount of water to put them out. So they're really hard to manage when they do get started. Thank you, Marilee, for trying.
It looks like it should go, but it's just not.
Yeah, that happens. So why are we talking about this? Well, more battery waste means more fires. And in Clark County, as you can see, the amount of batteries that we've recycled have increased exponentially over the years. And then if you click next again, this shows when lithium ions were introduced to the market. So lithium ions are that especially dangerous battery that I was telling you about that reach really just exorbitant temperatures when they have any kind of damage. So you can see a huge increase in the amount of batteries that we're recycling and needing to get out of our houses in a safe way and out of our solid waste system. So how do we dispose of them in Clark County? So there's quite a few options. I'm going to run through some of them. If you're in a single family home, you have curbside battery recycling. Does anyone here know about that program? I'll tell you about it really quick. So if you subscribe to Recycling Services of Waste Connections, you get to recycle your batteries curbside. What that essentially means is your button cell batteries, alkalines, and some of those standard household ones that we listed off can be taped placed in a Ziploc bag and put on top of your recycling cart on pickup day. And your driver will pick those up and take them to Waste Connections for you. The only caveat is this does not include lithium-ion batteries. So we're going to get into management for those through some of the other options. You can bring your batteries to a household hazardous waste facility. I know that's very far from you guys. How many of you have visited an HHW facility at one of our transfer stations? It's a far drive, right? Yeah. And then there's paid subscription options like Gridwell and Recycle Plus. If anyone's ever heard of those are like a storefront paid recycling option where you can get different kinds of waste streams that you commonly might produce in your house, taken care of by an external company for a fee. There's also paid mail-in recycling kits through companies like Call to Recycle. That is the company we use for our drop-off program. We'll get to it in just a sec. And paid drop-off at Batteries Plus stores, which you guys do not have out here. So now I'm going to talk about what is beneficial to everyone in this room, and that is our retail drop-off option with the battery drop-off program. So these are all of our existing battery drop-off sites in the county. I highlighted the one that is most important to you guys, Amboy Hardware. So I'm guessing we all know where Amboy Hardware is, just right across the street here. Okay, great. They were one of our first battery drop-off sites back in 2023. Has anyone ever seen a battery recycling kit or brought batteries to Amboy Hardware? Well, I'm glad that I'm here then. So Amboy Hardware will accept all of those household batteries that I rattled off in the earlier slide, as long as they are taped on their charges or individually bagged. You could bring 10 batteries to them every day. You can put on a mustache and try it again in the same day. I'm not sure how it would go, but I'd be curious. Let me know how it pans out for you guys. So they're just right down the street. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me after this presentation. I'm happy to sit and chat about the program a bit more, but what we're really looking to do is get the hazards out of your home, hazards out of our solid waste system, and then repurpose those minerals, right? Lithium has to be mined. So if we can reduce the amount that we're mining and reutilize what we already have, it's also beneficial and topical given our last presentation. So next slide, please. So really quickly, this is a picture of all of the devices that my coworker Jess has in her home. She rounded them up and was shocked at what she found. And I think that's probably a common story for all of us. So as you're going through, just like your spring cleaning, you notice you have a lot of battery-containing devices. My best advice is to get rid of them while you can. Don't keep them around. It's always safer. And just one less thing to stress about. Okay, feel free to email me if you have any questions or snag me after the presentation, but I'm going to pass it off to Pete.
Well, I'm here to talk about food waste, which you cannot take to the Amboy Hardware. And so we're about to kick off a compost recycler training session. We've got 50 folks coming in our class. We start tomorrow night. And we also go out in the community and do presentations on Zoom and also in person, really to try to get folks to keep their food out of the landfill. So we'll go to the next slide here. And so how many composters we have in the audience? Right. Okay, so this can be an interactive, because we always learn from each other. And how many gardeners, how many folks have some small gardens? Okay, awesome. I also preach this through Instagram. I'm certainly not on social media. I don't want to tell you to do social media, which is a rabbit hole of waste of time. But Instagram, composting.beat. And we'll go to the next slide. I've got lots of gardening tips there. So I work with Clark County. We are part of the garbage system. So we're an enterprise fund. We want more money to the general fund and to our sheriff and those departments. We have funding because people are throwing away like so. The state has come down and really wants us to try to keep food waste out of trash. And so I know the biggest issue here is we have carts that folks can conveniently just dump their pails into, which outside, which you could look to have just to kind of carry your food scraps around, a little lunchbox, reverse lunchbox, I guess. And has anyone been out to Finley Butte landfill? Anyone been to Borden, Oregon? All right. So it's an actual butte, and a butte is just kind of a hill that pops out of nowhere. And so we are creating a garbage butte next to that butte. And so we just keep mounding up our stuff. And it's basically about a ton of waste per person per year. So if we've got 400,000 people in this county, which is probably growing 450 now, just Clark County is throwing 450,000 tons. And we barge it out there, and we basically fill the hole. And then when the hole gets filled, we can pile up on top of the hole and just expand this garbage butte. Really with a lot of resources that we could be using. So I love, you know, if you're conservative or have whatever spectrum, but the root of conservative is conservative. And so we really don't want to be throwing away metals. And food waste is problematic in a landfill. Landfills do not break down like a compost pile. They basically get covered every day and all the oxygen gets out. So it's more like our stomach, or a better example is a cow's stomach. And anyone know what happens to the cow's stomach? But gas comes out, methane gas. And so the state is concerned about that as well. But mostly it's just a waste of nutrients. And it's fertilizer, free fertilizer. So go to the next slide here. This is basically how it works. It's not an old messy operation where you got rats running around and seagulls. They basically just have a little open cell. These landfills are put out where it's dry. They've got a big plastic membrane so stuff can't leak into our groundwater. And they bring these from the barge. They get onto a truck, and then they go on a tipping machine. They dump it out very efficiently, and they cover it all up at the end of every day. So that's how all that oxygen, and there's a heavy equipment that smushes out all the oxygen and squeezes it down. Okay, next slide. Oh, you can see 60,000 tons, sorry, if you go back one, of that 450,000, 60,000 tons is just food waste. And so one thing we're trying to do is certainly just give folks opportunities to manage that in businesses, and also get food back to folks who need food. Okay, so again, when you think of a banana, what's a nutrient or a mineral or something that comes to mind? Potassium. And if you're a gardener, the three macro ingredients, three macronutrients are NPK: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And so when we're throwing away banana peels, we're throwing away fertilizer. And a lot of fertilizers is like phosphorus and potassium are harder to get these days. So we'll go to the next slide. And skip over that one. And we'll skip over this one in the interest of time. So really what we're talking about here is composting. I know not everyone is going to be able to compost. And so we do have a program. If you're driving into Battleground, at the food bank, we have roll carts that get picked up by Waste Connections and taken to a municipal composter. So you just dump your pail right in there. But I wanted to come out here and empower you with some other ideas. So we'll just quickly speed through some things and take some questions. We're really doing well here. So let's go through our next slide here. So anyone know what it is in nature? It's called humus. And it looks like hummus. But it doesn't taste like it. And so in nature, if you look at that nice crumbly soil in like a forest or something like that, basically all that nutrient's been cycled up and everything's been eaten and decomposed. And what you're left with is this really beautiful soil. It's actually like a sponge, and it actually will hold moisture. So if you're gardening, you don't have to water as much. It will hold your nutrients with actual chemical positive minus attractions. So things won't run off with the exception of nitrogen. That's why you hear about that. But a lot of those other macro and micronutrients So when we do that in our own controlled way efficiently, it's called compost. So in nature, it's humus. In our bin or at an industrial site, it's compost. Basically, it's the same idea. All that material has been fed, and what you're left with is this very long strain of molecular stuff that you get a PhD in, which I have. So we'll go to the next slide. So in nature, of course, you can just click through all these. Nature knows how to cycle. Leaves come down. Hopefully folks aren't burning leaves because leaves are very valuable. You can mow them and they'll just feed your soil. And then they go down into our ground and feed through the earthworms. So we never have to actually put those leaves into the ground and magically disappear, right? And so that's that process of our decomposers and our worms bringing that material down, eating on it, and bringing it into our soil. So we typically don't till things, we just do mulching with our compost and let nature bring it into our soil. So again, you can kind of see here, has anyone been to the Heritage Farm? So the county is an 80-acre, used to be the old Poor Farm. It's in Hazeldale. There are community gardens there. The food bank also works plots there, and we do trainings. And we started spreading our compost in just 1 year. You can see we went from kind of a silty, compacted soil with a lot of weeds to just basically everything growing, and now it just grows itself. And so it is very it's a thing when you get it going. So we'll go to the next slide here.
Do the nutrients put down a disposal and into a septic system have a comparable benefit to composting? Disposal into a septic system have a comparable benefit.
That is a good.
I think well, definitely not the stuff from the septic system. That's got to get popped and taken away. That's going to be. So here's how our composting works, and this is just a very basic way to understand how composting, the way we do it. If you look at the left where the bin's full, what is something you see there as a description? Layers. And so we're going to talk about layers. Basically, compost, if you're a chef and you're making muffins, you've got your dry ingredients and your wet ingredients. And you basically, the way that you put them together is very important. You just want to make muffins out of flour and only the dry things, you wouldn't get it. And if you want to only make it out of the butter and the eggs, you wouldn't get it. So it's getting these two things together. So after 1 week, our bin drops, and we'll go to the next slide. And that's 7 weeks later. So we've gone basically from identifiable things. We've got paper, we've got food, we've got sawdust, to an actual unidentifiable material, which is basically the compost. So all the decomposers have come, stripped away all the nutrients, and we're left with compost, which holds those nutrients. And then we mulch with that, and we harvested about 2 wheelbarrows. And so it's a free form of soil, and we aren't doing as much manufacturing in our country anymore. So we can manufacture our own soil. It's quite easy to do, and we would love to train you more. Okay. Sounds like we have some composters. We like to just do our compost system because we have so much material we can fill up the bin, but not everyone has that much material. So we encourage folks to do the same thing where you can just dump your food scraps. And we have compost bins that I brought, which I grabbed. An example. You can request these through our website, which is clarkcountycompost.org.
Oh, wow.
And we have a grant, so we can provide these to folks. There is this kind of flimsy little thing that probably isn't really gonna work for you, but it could. And so, basically just dump your food scraps. You got your handy dandy bucket. And show you what to do. And, dump it in. And just like our layers, that's gonna be wet or dry. Mostly wet. So we want to cover it with dry. So it's always a wet, and then you always cover with dry. And then that will keep down the smells, keep down the rodents, activity and anything like that.
Dry what? Yeah, what do you consider dry?
So we're gonna keep going. Yeah, very good question. I think we're right in our next slide. Okay, so this is an option too. If you don't.
I'm coming right back.
Okay. You going to get the pail? So if you don't want the compost bin, it's too much effort, and you've got land, which, you know, we do out here in some regards, you can just bury it, and then the soil will actually break that down. We recommend also adding dry material. So just like you would do in your compost bin, if you're gonna bury it, it'd be great to add some dry material, which we are gonna talk about very soon. So next slide. I also have found these pretty good. We bound them up, and anyone interested in fishing, because we raise worms in these, and they're very effective for that. We can also show you those at 78th Street. Next slide. There's the bin and how to keep it clean. Next slide. Now we're getting close to our dry and wet materials. So, to be successful with composting, is our acronym SMART: size, moisture, aeration, ratio, and tools. We'll go to the first slide. Getting material into small pieces. So if you're going to turn compost in there and you wad up a big giant tomato plant, it's probably not going to work so well. If you clip it into small pieces and get the right balance, it will go to town. Okay, next slide. Okay, and we keep going. So basically we are having our decomposers come eat this stuff. So they can't eat a branch, but they can cut through a little bit. Moistly wrung out sponge, not too wet, not too dry. And then let's go to our next one. Aeration, you really don't have to turn these that often. Next slide. And this is how our layered approach works. Sometimes people call it greens and browns, but we'll go to the next slide. Here is someone who thought they had the mix right, and it was just a big giant clod of tomato plant and a big wad of newspaper, which does not work. So we'll go through those. You can see you just get a big slimy smell. Next slide. It still can be rectified. So even the worst compost bins can be fixed. Okay, so our example of browns or dry material, the number one are leaves. And leaves are problematic because when it rains, they get wet and they stay wet. So on a day like today where it's dry or the sun's out, you can bag them up and stockpile them. Composting is a hobby. Just like if you want to bake, you gotta have your baking goods. So if you want to compost, you gotta have your compost goods. So dry leaves, that's really the number one thing. You can use straw. We don't really encourage paper. Cardboard's hard to break into small pieces. Next slide. And then our wet material, of course, is our food scraps. Weeds you can be very cautious with because it's going in, it's probably going to grow. And then I was curious, how many coffee drinkers here? Okay, and then how about how many non-coffee tea drinkers? Okay, and then are there any other morning beverage, not coffee, not tea? Okay. Diversity, all right.
That's me.
So, is anyone putting their coffee in the trash? This isn't to make you, we're not we're not gonna call you out here. But, coffee, you basically, and you know, if you have a Keurig, it's a little bit harder, you gotta actually open it up. But all that coffee ground can just be put right on the ground, coffee ground. And then do an experiment, go back in a week and you'll never see it. So that's our first step. If you don't wanna deal with the food waste, just compost your coffee and your tea. And all you gotta do is once you drink your coffee or make your coffee, Mr. Coffee or French press or whatever it is, even a Keurig, just go out your door and just dump it out on the ground. So that moles. And it helps with moles. An actual coffee is it has a 2-1-1 NPK, actual person. And it does not that if you dump it out a little bit here and there, but it's pH neutral, so it would never also raise the pH of your soil. That's a myth. The acid actually gets pressed, and that's what we drink. So manure is another big way to manure is another good way to. That's on the lower left. We have 30,000 horses in Clark County, and a horse makes a ton of manure a month. So we got a lot of manure. Okay, next slide. We also have a lot of urban food waste. And so this is, does anyone guess what that is? Yeah, it's pulp from a juicer. So there's a Nectar in Hazeldale, and that's about 3 days worth of their waste that was all going in the trash. We give worm bids out to the community, and so we actually lost our suppliers, so we're now kind of breeding worms and having other people breed worms for us. So they come and get this food. It's really great. But there's a lot of food waste going out there. That's 5 tons a year just from this one juicer. That was going to the landfill, and you can just everywhere we think, restaurants and every cafes. Okay, next slide. We'll skip over that one. We'll skip over this, but grass cycle, you can just leave your grass. And everyone knows that if the grass goes brown, it comes back. Do you? Because I had a bet 10 years ago with my wife at the time, and she didn't think it would come back. And I made $20. So we got lots of different kinds of pens. That's the one that we offer. And again, if you're interested, you can talk to me. The little tote things are giveaways. Next slide. We do have some good tools that we recommend. It is a science as well as an art. We've got good thermometers that we recommend. Pitchfork, of course, is really the #1 tool you need in a shovel. So it doesn't take that much. Okay, you get to go outside, get your exercise. We'll skip over. And this is the most exciting thing for me, is we're basically taking things that were once alive, have now been dead, and we either go to landfill and sit there forever, or create gas and these other things. We actually, like a modern day alchemist, we can spin this stuff into new soil. And I'm not sure how the science is done on this, but in this active living soil that we make compost, in a teaspoon is 1 billion living organisms, obviously mostly can't see bacteria and all these other things. So if you think like a cup of that is as many living organisms as there are people on this planet. It's when you're spreading this compost in your gardens and elsewhere, you're basically bringing life to your land. Next slide. We're winding down here. As I said, we typically just use our compost. You can see that was filled to the tippy top, and then with a couple turns and maybe 2 to 3 months, you can see how concentrated, and that's all you get out of it. And you get that dark, rich, beautiful soil. And then we just mulch with it, let the animals and worms bring it down, okay? And it is, when I like to think of compost, I like to think of it again as a sponge. So it will hold moisture, sometimes 4 to 10 times its weight. So when you have these real mulch gardens, you don't have to water as much. They hold all these nutrients and also creates really good structure for your soil. I don't know if anyone's been out to hard ground, you try to put pitchfork in the ground and it just doesn't go at all. When you do that in our gardens, it's like butter. That's right. Warm butter. Okay. Next slide here. Typically, if your compost stinks, it's too wet. I just tried an experiment using wet leaves, which are typically kind of a dry material, but they happen to be wet. And wet food, and it was not a good experiment. So, you need the dry and you need the wet. Okay. And then has anyone seen these critters on the left? They are soldier fly larvae, and they look like maggots, and they sound creepy, but they are decomposers. They hatch into harmless black soldier flies. They don't have a mouth. They can't bite. They can't transmit anything. But they, in warm temperatures with food and the right conditions, you will open your compost bin and see the entire top of it. It's really pretty spooky. And then the pesky fruit fly. But what we found is the fruit flies prefer to be in the bin. So they might come out. And then people have fruit flies who don't compost right in their house, and they just come to. So you gotta live with them a little bit. Okay. And here we are. So we were going around. We will go out to garden clubs, neighborhood associations. I really appreciate your time, and I've learned a lot coming here as well. And then we distribute these bins out at our heritage farm. Although if someone was really excited, we would have door prize. You go home with your own compost bin. I just need to get your name and email. I think that's it. Oh yeah, a couple of facts. Compost will not catch on fire. Weed seeds are not killed. You do not need to add worms. The worms just come naturally. Even if you have a giant tumbler up in the air, the worms will go in there. I don't know how they get there. You need a little worm cam, but they do. I know folks have fire stoves. We don't put any wood ash in our compost, mostly because like our stomachs are acidic. We want our compost piles to be acidic to break down that material, and wood ash is a neutralizer. I recommend just whipping your wood ash out in the woods. That's kind of where it came from. Okay, what else we got? I think that's it. Question? Great. Work through that so we have get you out here on time. Questions?
Website?
It's Clark County Compost with an S.org. Oh, there it is. Clark County Compost.org.
Do you have a single site where you're doing all this composting, or is it several different sites?
So what we do are we do trainings, and we have the closest one here would be at Casey in Brush Prairie, and I think we're there the first Wednesday of the month, typically when it warms up a little bit. But all that information is on our website as well. Yes, and if you want to take your pail and be a hero and bring it to the Battleground Food Bank, or bury it in the ground, or get one of these compost bins, or even a worm bin, we applaud you. Thank you. Thank you. Nice.
So I think we're gonna do election of officers for, we do that, though I should say, if you haven't signed in, sign in.
Yes, please
And if
do.
you haven't been here before and you wanna be spammed, give me an email address, we send important, not that often, we send a couple emails out a month, just, important stuff going on in the county. Sheriff Horch left some some cards. So if you want to stay in contact with him, grab one of those cards. And then Marilee printed out copies of both the battery and the composting presentation. So you can grab those. Yeah.
And information on CERT.
And information on CERT. Yes. Yes. All right. And then grab a cookie. My wife made some cookies. So grab a cookie. Yeah. All right. Marilee, you want to run the election?
Do you have any volunteers that have stepped forward to,
I think we got one president volunteer.
And the others?
The others? Anybody else want to volunteer?
I heard that.
So we got Brian as a nominee for president. Forgot to talk to Jerry and Brenda before. You guys wanting to hang on to the mantle of VP and secretary?
I'm willing.
I'm willing.
You're willing?
I'm also happy it's not.
Okay.
Same here.
Any volunteers for VP or secretary?
Congratulations.
All right, so,
Didn't even have to.
oh, Jim has raised his hand.
Yeah, my question is, could I hear the comments from the candidates for chair of this group as to whether they see themselves representing the working class folks out here who want jobs or the environmental perspective?
Where's Brian?
Yeah, he wants to know if, like,
Are you a tree hugger or are you a blue collar man?
Yeah.
I'm definitely a blue collar man, so I retired from Freight Liner Corporation, IAM, so I'm machinist aerospace. And anyway, so I've built over
Okay,
100,000.
That sounds good, because you got to remember that the majority of people that live out here in North County are working class people. And that's what, I happen to vote Democratic. I used to be a Republican, but the vote out here is overwhelmingly Republican because they feel that the Democratic Party has abandoned them by adopting unnecessary and unreasonable environmental rules. And so remember the community that you guys are representing. It's not a group that's enthusiastic about excessive environmental regulations.
Jim,
Okay.
I know I've sat in on your meeting, at the, up at the museum. Anyway, so my primary number one goal is, try to keep our town clean, try to get dead animals up off the road, try to get junk vehicles off our scenic highway. We're classified as a scenic highway, and I'd really, to get people to stop here in Amboy and spend their dollars instead of running all the way to Battleground, because Battleground looks so much safer than Amboy. And anyway, if we try to clean up our town a little bit, they'll spend some more money here, And anyways, I think it's a real simple goal. And it used to be in history, there used to be a drive that everybody took in their 1930 Buicks up to what they call Christmas Canyon. It was highly touted in the Oregonian in 1930. And anyway, they used to drive up. They used to see flowers and tulips in Barger Lake. Then it turned into mint fields after that. But the tulip farm there and on their way up to Christmas Canyon was quite a drive. And, I'm not sure if the steamers were going at that time. But anyway, Amboy used to be a very beautiful place. And on fresh roads in 1930. So.
All right, so raise of hands for Brian for president. I think that looks like a majority.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And then raise of hands for Jerry for VP. Good, good. And then raise your hands for Brenda for secretary. Excellent.
Nice.
All right, we got.
I do too.
Oh, thank you.
You got 2 minutes to work so hard.
All right, then we've
So
got
what's
our
your-
elections done for the next year, and we'll stay in touch with what the next meeting date is, and hopefully continue to work with the church. This is a great little meeting space.
Yeah.
And we love
Yeah.
being able to have the Wi-Fi, and we really appreciate you allowing us to meet here.
Yep, thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marilee, for all you do in assisting us, and yeah, thank you to all who show up and present.
Thank you, Jonathan, for getting it started and carrying us through.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just a question as I am, definitely, it's still the secretary, do we have in the next meeting scheduled?
I have not scheduled anything.
Okay, so
So
let's.
Well, I haven't even been president even a minute.
Are there any topics you'd like to have or any speakers that you'd like to have for spring? Do you want master gardeners to come up here or?
Yeah, Ginger also suggested a gardener that provides like some of the, starts that she sells at her store. It doesn't, I think that person and the other like master gardeners.
Okay.
More of the compost thing, I think would be great.
Okay.
Just start like, yeah, it'd be great to start.
Got a 4-legged composter. Doesn't even give you 5-second rule, you know.
All right, we'll work on getting that pulled together and getting a date scheduled then.
Yeah,
And we'll send out another postcard so that everybody
Yeah.
gets notified.
I feel like the idea of like ice cream social, like some kind of like summer kind of thing, get to know everybody, and it'd be nice to have the fire department sometime when they're doing another, fire extinguisher.
Oh, yeah, we can do that
I
again.
think, you know, we didn't have a whole lot of people there at that one meeting, so.
Yeah, it'd be good to do it in the summertime when it's light out.
Yeah, night out, you know, have everyone there, put kids around, to be sure everyone knows.
Yeah. Let's do that. And maybe we'll put up the video of some of the people that did put out the fire when you put it out there. Okay, got some ideas then. So that's fantastic. We'll focus on community stuff and move forward. And thank you, Pete.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And Bethany, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.